And looking for help in resolving this whole thing has moved not just within Kaduna State, but also to nationally too. I take you up on the National Assembly, for example, because of the high rate of kidnapping, where it's a major crime in the northwestern part of the country. And they pointed out that the payment of ransom has provided the avenue for terror groups to raise funds to carry out their operation. And it was controversial in the way they say that ransoms payment is outlawed in the new act, in the amendment of an act before them, and the Terror Act before the National Assembly. And the argument is on both sides. Some think it works, some think it's only going to worsen the situation. What are your thoughts, Professor Usman?
Right. I mean, no doubt, the economy in the north now has essentially moved into the forest, because that's where these criminal terrorists, bandits of hundreds of millions from ransom they get after abducting our people, and people pay. So for National Assembly to remain in Abuja, disconnected from our people, and just amending the law. Oh, it's illegal to do this, it's illegal to do this, without connecting with their people. And I've said it again and again, our politicians are disconnected from realities of our people. So you're now blaming the victim. The victim are the people that are taken on their families. How did we get here? It's because of failure of government. And I ask the Senate and the House, why don't you make laws and make it illegal for government to not protect us? Because protecting our people is the primary responsibility of any government. So our government has failed. And people are taken like cattle into the forest. And their relatives are doing all they can to get them out. And you are delegitimizing that. Nobody is saying all of these things that these bandits and these criminals are doing is right. We are the first victims. But for our politicians to sit in Abuja in air-conditioned room and say, oh, it's illegal to do this. How about you get this government to secure our people instead of making all these laws? How about you go back home and interact with your people? Politicians are disconnected. They are not interested in security anymore. All they're interested is running around town looking for votes or delegates. That's not why we voted them in. We voted them in to protect us. And they have failed. And they're in Abuja saying, oh, if they abduct my brother or my son, oh, I shouldn't get that relative out. Come on, give me a break. It requires common sense, and I do not see that. I honestly do not. Do not. They should stop insulting us and do the right thing.
Okay. We'll still come back to that particular one, but let me take you up on the statement you made just a while ago on the fact that in your own view, insecurity in Kaduna is much worse compared to what obtains in Zamfara at this point in time. The governor of Kaduna State, El-Rufai, did call out on security operatives, especially he cried, some would say he cried for help last week. He said Boko Haram ISWAP were almost taking over his state. What did you make of that statement, bearing in mind that, just as I said earlier on, there is the heavy presence of security across the state, but it seems as if the governor still does not feel that the citizens of the state are safe enough in spite of that. What are your expectations and what's your view on that call by the governor?
Yeah, I've seen it was a front page news leadership. Oh, Boko Haram, the governor of Kaduna State is raising alarm that Boko Haram is in Kaduna. And I've said it, this is not new intelligence. So is he just realizing it now? This has been going on for years. Why is he bringing it now? What is the purpose? If he's come to tell us that, oh, it's gotten worse, then we'll understand. But Boko Haram has been operating in Kaduna for a long time, not this quarter that they're bringing this report. And now we're at a stage where all he's doing is blaming the military, blaming this, blaming this. As the chief executive of a state, you cannot absolve yourself as a governor. No governor will absolve himself of responsibility of the deteriorating insecurity in his state. All the states. What have they done? What measures have they done to mitigate all these things, all the sufferings of our people? We are at a stage now where he's blaming the military, is that. What has he done? He has refused to engage all these years. He has essentially outsourced security to his commissioner. He has not met families of victims. I've said it before and before. A leader is supposed to be there for the people, not just churning numbers. He's not engaged with the people, he's not engaged with stakeholders, and now he is running tantrums, blaming security agencies. He cannot absolve himself of blame. People of Kaduna State voted him in to secure them. And on that count, he has failed, just like the federal government has failed to secure the nation.
Professor
so the buck
Yusuf,
stopped at his desk.
all right. Some would argue with you that the governor has always communicated his efforts in securing the states to the people, and the essence of the quarterly reports that is being released so that people can see what they're doing, that it's just beyond what you can see, but it will seem as if to say, according to him, there are some saboteurs within the system. How do you really compare this to what is going on? Because some would argue that he's doing what he can within his powers. Remember a couple of months ago, one of the governors, in fact, specifically Governor Borno State, Zulum, almost resulted into employing mercenaries to go to help him, rout terrorists within his state. Wouldn't it be unfair of you to really say that Governor Rufai isn't doing anything?
All right, Governor El Rufai and Governor Zulum and all these APC governors are part of this government. They are part of this government that have failed to secure this nation. So now they should not find an off-ramp to jump this ship. What have they done? They are part of this government that has failed to secure this nation. So now, at the twilight years of this government, they are blaming everybody but themselves. What have they done? There are a lot of things they could have done. Governor El Rufai has refused to engage major stakeholders in his state and has refused to interact with families that are suffering. There have been abductions in 5 schools in Kaduna. Refused to meet any of the families. He has not met the families of this Regina train, the 62 members, the 62 family members that are in the forest, including an 85-year-old grandmother who is diabetic and a 3-year-old child. He's not met the family members. This happened in his tough, in his state. The leader shows empathy, not throwing data. That is what a leader is supposed to do. Reach out to people, not just read out data. So yes, all the governors will be held responsible, and they cannot absolve themselves and blame the president or blame the governor, blame the military. They are the leaders of their states. And yes, the president and the military, they have responsibility. But we're not talking Kaduna State. And each state, we will interrogate them. There's a record. What have you done to forestall insecurity in your state? How have you engaged people? How have you shown compassion? How have you shown empathy? How have you shown empathy? How have you met with families of members that are still in all the northern states? Our children and our people are still in the forest. And yet the governors are here in Abuja politicking. They're politicking. We're human beings. Leadership must be done with the milk of human kindness, and I don't see that. Churning numbers is not that. It's not that. So governors have failed in protecting our people. They have failed in engaging our people. And in the twilight years of this government, you cannot jump ship and say, oh, I'm blaming this, I'm blaming this. We'll bring all intelligence now. I don't know the purpose. I don't.
So, Usman, I mean, this is a fate worse than death. With horror, we have to do reports oftentimes of the people who've been abducted. I mean, the incidents. You talk about the humanizing the stories, and a lot of stories come to my mind, even when the terrorists are caught, and then they're made to face the press, and they ask questions on why they carried out the abductions, why they killed the abductees, and I think of those numbers of who are still in the captivity of these terrorists, and it's quite a number of them still in captivity, and makes me wonder what sort of approach the Kaduna State government, I'm sure, is theirs to respond to. But you've met some of the families, I can imagine, who have their children or loved ones still in captivity. And what are the things you hear from them in terms of how they can get them out while we wait for them, wait for the state actors to negotiate them out of captivity? What do you hear from them?
Right. I mean, of course, the usual frustration, genuine frustration of a relative whose relative is in the hands of these criminals. We've been listening to them. Shegumi has been listening to them. So just listening to a person in distress in itself is therapeutic. Somebody's listening. Even if you can't do anything, but you listen. We are not in any position, we are not in any power to do that. Can you imagine if a leader listens to a person in distress? How comforting that is? And that is the purpose of leadership. To wipe people's tears, to hug them when they are in distress. Not to lock yourself up with police and soldiers with big guns, disconnected from people. Leadership is connecting with people, especially when they're in distress. So we've had, and we continue to hear from not only the relatives of those involved in the train attack, but relatives of victims all across the Northwest and the North Central. We hear from them. We do what we can. We reach out to those in government and those out of government to see how we can get them help. But most importantly, just our listening gives them hope. Because without hope, what is life? A leader must listen to his people, particularly when they're in distress. If this was the United States, President Biden will be there seeing families one-on-one, away from the cameras. But it happened in your state and you're not engaging the families? What manner of men are our leaders, I wonder?